Donnie and Dolly, the team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
All of our guests today are brought to you by the Bayside Oceanfront Resort, located in beautiful Parksville. The Bayside is the spot to relax your mind and indulge your senses, all while taking in their panoramic ocean views. Book your island getaway today at Bayside.OceanfrontResort.com. As we bring in Kelly Hrudey from Hockey Night in Canada, also does the Flames broadcast for Sportsnet. He knows a thing or two about goalie masks of the past. Kelly Hrudey joining us. Thank you, sir. How are you?
Don and Rick, doing great. In fact, I stayed at the Bayside Resort in Parksville, so good
Nice.
memories. That's a number of years ago, and my wife and I and a couple of our daughters were there on a little trip, so it was awesome.
Oh, that sounds good. Thanks for that, Kelly. Hey, Kelly, before we get into the Flames and what's happening around the NHL, I know you were a birdcage guy for most of your career, but did you have a favorite mask back in the day?
Oh, for sure. Oh, definitely. My Hollywood mask. I think that's what a lot of people remember.
Yes.
I wore, and when I decided to go to that style of mask, besides the helmet and the birdcage, as you called it, we took a lot of time in trying to come up with a design. And I remember I had a business partner from Los Angeles fly up to Calgary. We had our home here at that time, even though we were living or playing in LA. And over the course of a couple of evenings with the artist, Don Strauss, we had thrown out a number of different ideas, but I really admired Mike Richter's Statue of Liberty mask. That was one of my favorite because it was what the landmark is for New York. Everybody recognizes that. When you think of the city of New York, what do you think of? Well, you think of the Statue of Liberty. And it was a really simple design, and you could tell what it was instantaneously, right? And so that's why we decided to go with the Hollywood mask, because that's what everybody thinks of when they think of Los Angeles. And it was also really easily identified, right? So you didn't have to, with all due respect to the masks that we see in today's NHL, the artwork is phenomenal, but unless you really know what you're looking at, it's hard to distinguish what it is, right? And so and I found it to be my favorite mask. My favorite artwork is what's really simple and you can identify it when you first see it.
Yeah, it's funny, Kelly. We already brought up Richter. I mean, people don't really want to talk about '94 and what Richter did to the Canucks, but that mask was something else. We've already talked about it. Okay, the Flames. Canucks knocked them off in '94. Not so much right now. Number one in the West. What is going right for that hockey club?
They're meeting their expectations. And notice I didn't say they're exceeding their expectations because that's not accurate. This is the team that we kind of thought this is how they were built last year. For whatever reasons, not going to make a ton of excuses, but the pandemic had a lot to do it. And mentally, I know it was difficult for a lot of teams and a lot of players individually. And they underachieved so badly last year. And now to see them playing this way it's what I expected. Everybody is, a couple of guys are maybe playing a little bit better than we had thought, but nonetheless, they're getting a total team game. Now you look at the 7 shutouts, and maybe a couple of them were goalie shutouts, but the others were team shutouts where I didn't think the goalies were challenged all that much, maybe 3 or 4 tough saves. And this is a team that I think that they truly understand what their identity is right now. And, they're getting contributions from every single guy that may have surprised a few people in particular. I don't think any of us saw Oliver Shillington having this kind of start to the season.
Darryl Sutter, how much does he have to do with this?
I hesitate because I have history with Darryl, but he is certainly a good coach, and he is he's making sure that they're prepared to start every single game, right? So the one thing about a Sutter team is that he doesn't allow you to ease into the game. You first shift, if he doesn't think that you're playing well, then he'll reduce your ice time.
And players have responded. Hey, Johnny Gaudreau is off to an outstanding start. He's a UFA in the summer. Can you envision him staying in Calgary, especially the way he and the team are playing right now?
I can. I know there's tons of speculation, has been for at least the last 2 seasons, about when his contract expires that he's going to head to somewhere in Jersey, where he's from, whether it's Philadelphia or somewhere in that New York area. But I think that he really loves it here. And it must be exhausting for him to answer these sort of questions everywhere he goes. And now, I'm not going to suggest to you that the possibility doesn't exist that he might go elsewhere. I mean, if you're a UFA, you've got to listen to every offer, right? But from listening to everything he says, he and his wife love it here. They've made a home here, and I kind of expect if the team continues to win, what other than money would make you want to leave? Because it's a great atmosphere to play in.
Kelly, got to ask you about 2 Canucks that ended up in Calgary, Markstrom and Tanev. I know last year was kind of a weird year and just with COVID and everything, but do they feel more comfortable there in Calgary this season, Kelly? And talk a bit about both those guys.
Okay, so Chris Tanev has been just phenomenal, and you guys know that, Don and Rick. You've watched him for a number of years in Vancouver. Your fans know that. Fortunately, so far for Tanev, he's been healthy, which has been a problem because when you play that way, you're going to get nicked up. But I have to tell you that he has just played so well. He's an interesting guy, though, isn't he? That because of that skill set, like he makes a great first pass, you would kind of expect that just through those first passes, he'd get more points. But, nonetheless, you overlook that because of what he brings, the other things he brings to the table. You could easily make the argument, and I mean easily, that he is the Flames' best defenseman. And Markstrom, guys, he was having a tremendous start to the season last year until that collision that you guys will remember versus Tanner Pearson. And then he missed a couple of games. Well, he tried to play through it, which is honorable. Unfortunately, he couldn't, and then he missed a couple games. And then when he came back, he was just off. He just couldn't quite find it. Again, there was a little stretch where he got back to being pretty good, but this is the player that the Flames and their fans expected, right? He has just been a dominant goaltender. Now, I will tell you, as I said, he has had lots of protection. The team plays airtight in front of him. The one thing that, I think is a little bit misleading when you think about the Flames, though, and how they play defense, you would think it's just locked down in their own zone. But a lot of it has to do how quickly they exit their zone and how much time they spend in the offensive zone. It's about puck possession for me, and I think that's one of the reasons why they're playing so well. And, of course, those 2 ex-Canucks.
Speaking of the Canucks, did you expect them to be better? And what are you seeing when you watch Elias Pettersson?
Frustration, a guy that really cares, a guy that has high expectations for himself, and when the results aren't there, listen, he knows what he needs to do, and unfortunately for some young players, frustration sets in, and I've always said frustration is a wasted emotion. It doesn't bring you anything, right? It drags you down. It saps your energy. Even though you think you're playing as hard as you possibly can, it's a really difficult thing to play through. But I expected the team in general to be much better. This is a make-or-break 5-game road trip that they're on. I personally believe that if they're going to fight their way back into this playoff race, they're probably going to have to go 4-1 on this road trip. Now, the good news is, last 2 games I thought were really good. Good 3-2 win versus Winnipeg, and I thought their effort versus Chicago was tremendous. And you've got to look for positives if you're in this situation. And going on to this road trip, it's not going to be easy, although it's not the toughest road trip. Mm-hmm. They start off in Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh is a really good team playing really well now. But after that, they have Columbus, Boston, Montreal, and Ottawa. That's a road trip where I think that if they play like they can, they could possibly come home 4-1 on that trip.
Kelly, can I pry and ask you what your season was like with Darryl Sutter in San Jose?
He's challenging, and you can ask. It wasn't my favorite year for sure. Darryl works for some people, and he didn't work for me. And in fairness to Darryl and to a lot of the coaches I had, my first ever coach was Al Arbor, right? And so my expectations for a coach were a little bit different, and I think that's it.
Has he changed?
Well, he'd have to, right?
Yeah.
And the way that you spoke to people back then would have to be way different than what it would be today.
Kelly, thanks for this. Really appreciate it, and love the Hollywood mask.
Okay, Don, Rick, thanks. Great chatting with you guys.